When Lord Ram's brother Bharat was born as Jad Bharat after learning about detachment during his previous life as a deer, he understood that attachment and ego needed to be rid of. And he lived as dull, deaf, and half-witted, so that no one would ever want anything from him, and he'd never be tempted by praise or duty again. The turning point comes when King Rahugan of Sovira, travelling by palanquin to meet the sage Kapil, has his men press local labourers into carrying him. Jad Bharat is pulled from a field despite being physically unfit for it. As they walk, he keeps breaking stride, not from laziness, but to avoid stepping on ants in his path. The palanquin lurches. The irritated king insults him, then threatens him outright, comparing him to a beast, a useless servant, and warning he'll be punished the way Yamaraj punishes the wicked. Jad Bharat says nothing. No defense, no flinch, no attempt to appease. That total absence of reaction is what finally tips off Rahugana that he isn't insulting a servant at all. He stops the palanquin, climbs down, and falls at the labourer's feet, begging to know who he really is. Jad Bharat's answer becomes one of the Puran's densest philosophical passages. He said, "O king, you called me thin. You called me a servant, a burden carrier, one who walks unevenly and deserves punishment. Tell me, of whom did you speak? You pointed at this body, this frame of flesh and breath that eats when it is fed and starves when it is not, that grows heavy in one season and wastes away in another. But I ask you, was that me you addressed, or only the vessel I happen to be sitting in today? This is the first and last error of every living being, to look at the body, its weight, its labour, its rank, its wounds, and mistake it for the self. The body is not carried by me. It carries itself, driven by forces that have nothing to do with who I am. You think you are your throne. I once thought I was my grief, my hunger, my duty. But watch what actually drives a man through his days, not his will but his senses. The eye pulls toward what is beautiful. The tongue pulls toward what is sweet. The skin pulls toward comfort. The ear toward praise. These senses are wild horses, O king, unbroken, straining in 5 different directions at once. And the mind, which should be the rein that governs them, becomes instead just another horse, racing after its own desires, no more disciplined than the rest. A man who has not mastered this team is not driving his life. He is being dragged by it. Birth after birth, the same ungoverned cart rattles forward, sometimes into a palace, sometimes into a field, sometimes into the body of a beast or a bird. Never chosen, only pulled, the reins slack in hands that never learn to hold them. And where does this cart run? Through a forest, O king, dense, tangled, without paths, without light. That is what this material life is. The soul enters it seeking one thing, satisfaction, and it is ambushed at every turn, by wanting, by grasping, by the promise that this next pleasure, this next possession, this next praise will finally be enough. It never is. Desire does not end when fed. It only learns the shape of its next hunger. And in the dark of that forest, a man sees a coiled rope lying in his path and startles, certain it is a snake, his whole body flooding with fear of a serpent that was never there. That is exactly what you did to me today, when you looked at this tired, aging shape, walking unevenly beside your palanquin, and believed you had found something to despise. You were afraid of a rope, my king. There was no servant here to insult. There never was. Rahugan, a king used to being bowed to, is undone by the man he just threatened. He renounces the pride of his throne on the spot, and per the text, goes on to attain liberation through what he's just heard.